race fans, it's Taylor, and welcome back to Above Field Line, the show where we talk all about the NASCAR Cup Series, and there is a lot to talk about, unpacking the box that was Circuit of the Americas from our new 2022 frontrunners to a finish that was a little controversial in some people's eyes of was this move the correct move or was it the wrong move, but don't worry, we will get to that later in this episode. And then near the end, we will preview the Toyota Earners 400 at Richmond Raceway, but we're not doing it alone. Please welcome from the podium finish and back here on Above Field Line, Rob Tiongson. Rob, I wanted to ask you, how was being at the track this weekend?
It was pretty awesome for the first real race, since the pandemic happened. I mean, as you know, I was at Charlotte last October when we did my last appearance in ATYL. And in the Roval, of course, that was during COVID protocols when, we still had to wear our masks, maintain social distance with the drivers. So I considered this past weekend the real comeback race for me since 2019. And it was just great. I mean, getting to do interviews one-on-one in the haulers, outside the haulers, being in the bullpen and basically inches away from the drivers instead of extending my arm like this. It felt like getting back to work, which I enjoyed. And the races themselves, I got to say, were pretty stout.
The races weekend were pretty entertaining, very stellar. There was a lot of action happening with Truck Series, Xfinity Series, very solid. But yeah, I wanted to ask you a little bit about being a media member. You said you got to be really up close with the drivers, talking their haulers. Kind of for those folks out there who watch from a fan perspective, what is it like being at the track as a part of the media?
It's really cool. I mean, you're definitely in the trenches. You get a little bit more information than what's been said on the radio broadcast and the TV telecast. I mean, you can dictate the angle and perspective of the stories, of course, truthfully, but at least you get to work with the drivers, the teams, find a story angle that's different from what the regular traveling press gets to do. So, I mean, for me, my agenda was just to try to do a lot of one-on-ones because that's my specialty versus trying to do hard news and breaking news stories. So all in all, it was really cool just to get back in the haulers, see these drivers in their elements. I mean, Noah Gragson for one, and that's a little bit of a preview to what's going to happen on TPF. Noah was in his hauler and he was just as chill as could be 2 hours before the race. I mean, you would never know he was getting ready for his big race at COTA. So it was really cool. And Kyle Larson too, who I interviewed after qualifying. I mean, I thought he was going to be pretty dejected, but he couldn't be in a better mood despite finishing 13th in qualifying. And obviously the race didn't go so well for him, but all in all, it was really cool.
Yeah, we'll talk about the results. We'll get into those. Also, thank you for sharing your perspective. For me personally, and I know everyone out there, it's kind of curious as, you get to be on pit road, but how does that work? And where do you draw the line between media member and fan? But also, just so cool to share your perspective. And we talked about the results. Kyle Larson didn't have a very good day. We'll talk about that. But the story of the evening, and you talked about, finding storylines and also, what angle you want to take. The angle of today was that Ross Chastain bump and ran against AJ Allmendinger and won the race, the Echo Park Automotive Texas Grand Prix. He battled in stage 2 with Cindric and Briscoe led some laps as well in the race, but I was very impressed with, all of them as a whole. And Chastain obviously getting that first career win for himself in the Cup Series and the first win for Trackhouse Racing. And then we have Bowman finishing in second. Rob, I don't know what you saw from Bowman at the track, but from at home, I was seeing he was moving pretty much constantly all day. It was a really good, solid race for him.
I'd say he learned a lot from the truck race on Saturday, despite, what happened in the end of that race. He's certainly not someone who comes first in mind, first to think about with road course racing, but he really looked comfortable and confident in his number 48 car all weekend long, especially in that Cup car. So to see him in the mix, especially in that really wild last lap, which if you look at the box score, it just looks like Ross Chastain led the entire thing. But no, there were 3 unofficial lead changes. But Bowman himself, man, he was really smooth out there. Just kind of unfortunate that he timed a really good pass, maybe a few corners too soon, because with Ross Chastain, you have to know he's going to go for that inch, even if it's against one of his best friends.
Absolutely. And then finishing in third too, another road course guy that we think will do well is Christopher Bell. Didn't have the day we wanted him to have the start, but obviously rallied for Toyota, which is a very big deal from the young driver. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about Chase Elliott and then Ryan Blaney to finish 4th and 6th. Tyler Reddick finishing between them. He had a bit of a good day, a bit of a bad day. He was kind of in the mix, but he was always towards the front. But in particular, I wanted to mention something about their pit crews. We have seen both these drivers in particular have really bad pit stops this season when they needed to count most. I could count Bubba Wallace into this too. He's had 3 loose wheels, and obviously he had 1 come off at COTA. But I wanted to read this to you, and for you all out there, this is what happened over Chase Elliott's radio. This is from Jordan Bianchi on Twitter. The quote, it is, quote, "How many more times are we going to get blank on pit road on the last blanking stop?" So some heated words. I wanted to ask you, Rob, I want you to put on your crew chief hat, your race engineering hat. If you had any advice for him and Ryan Blaney's teams, what advice would you give them for their pit stops?
You got to brush up on those little small things that become bigger things, because there's obviously some kind of disturbing trend with these pit stops. Now, granted, of course, as you probably have discussed on previous ATYL shows, obviously these tires have changed quite a bit. There's no longer the 5 lug nuts on each tire. There's just one central bolt that they have to put on. And, maybe these pit crews are just not used to it. There's also the fact that the pit stop choreography things have changed since the first 2 or 3 races of the year. So, it just goes to show that 2 big teams, and Team Hendrick Motorsports and Team Penske, if they're open to these mistakes, their pit crew coaches should get together with their teams ahead of the next race at Richmond to say, hey guys, let's clean up our mistakes. Let's figure out, how do we do 2-tire pit stops, 4-tire pit stops, diagnose what's going on, so that when you get to these late race situations, you're not going to put your driver at risk of losing positions, but rather gaining those positions and trusting your guy out there to get the job done.
Absolutely agree with you. We got to practice these pit stops, and I would say practice them in high pressure situations. Make what you practice back at the shop matter. Maybe put a competition into play, something that'll pay off at the end of the year. Like, if you have the fastest pit time, here's what you win. It sounds kind of cheesy and kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say childish, but make them count there. So when the pressure's on at the track, you'll perform as well as you need to and perform consistently. And clearly I am not a pit crew member. I've never done this in my life. So this is advice as me watching on TV, but nevertheless, I think, Rob, what you said was head on. And I also think it's important to note, though they have had the most issues kind of pit road stop wise on, how everything's been timed, they are the leaders in points right now. If we take a look at the point standings, Chase Elliott leads in points, Ryan Blaney is second, then in their top 5 is Joey Logano, Alex Bowman, then Ross Chastain. We still have some drivers that maybe aren't as well as they should be, like Denny Hamlin, 22nd in points, and we'll talk about that in a second as we talk about our key players of the race. So Hamlin, he got some points. He won stage 2, much needed for that team. Unfortunately, though, for him, he ended up finishing the race in P18, so not where he wanted to be. And then Daniel Suarez. I wanted to talk about Daniel Suarez with you a little bit, Rob. We have seen him do so well. Stage 1, saw him dominate the stage. It was a Trackhouse type of day, and then he's starting stage 2. I wanted to ask from you, did you watch Daniel Suarez throughout the day, and what did you see him try to get back towards the front? Like, what did you see from the number 99 team?
Coming into the race, because I interviewed him on Saturday, he was just genuinely confident and just feeling like this was going to be the race weekend to win. It was a big one for him because all of his family and friends from Mexico could just make the quick drive up to COTA in Austin. And I thought after stage 1, I was like, you know what? Just got to have clean pit stops, stay out of trouble, because, turn 1, trouble corner is going to be, where the person leading the race could be put into a really dangerous situation. And unfortunately for him, he just never recovered from what happened in the beginning of stage 2. It's unfortunate just because I thought it was going to be his race to win. He's a road course expert. He's been the number 1 guy really for Trackhouse, although Ross Chastain has been making a bigger case to say, you know what, maybe I'm the one who's number 1 and Daniel's the close number 2. It's really a shame just because this has kind of been the trend for Daniel, where he has these great starts and then something out of his control happens and it's just hard for him to recover. But, I do believe what he says. He's going to get his first Cup win. I would have pegged him getting the first win for Trackhouse over Ross. No offense to Ross, of course.
See, I'm going to disagree with you on that. I think basically, when the season began, I absolutely thought it was going to be Daniel Suarez all the way. But then as the season progressed, we saw the consistency from Ross Chastain. He has had 4 top 3s in a row, and that one, of course, coming here at COTA being the win. But for a while, I was like, it's going to be Daniel Suarez all the way. But I do agree with you, though, on the fact that he's going to get a win this season. I can feel it. I'm not going to jinx it, but I feel that he will get a win. Another driver, though, that wasn't able to come back from an early, really good start was Chase Briscoe. I mean, he was putting on a clinic for me, especially because Tony Stewart was in the booth. He did so well and unfortunately had a flat tire near the end of the race and just wasn't able to recover, which was such a shame because he's been doing so well. We'll gloat more about him in the middle of the episode here, but we'll move on to Kyle Larson. Rob, you said you talked to him before the race or after qualifying. And Larson ran a good race. He didn't do as well as I think I expected him to. And then, of course, in like the last restart, he got into it with, what was it, Logano and Kurt Busch. And because Kurt Busch, I think, broke something off of his car and it just ruined his day, which was super unfortunate. Did you get a chance to hear him after the race?
I did not. I mean, I was looking for him on pit road because NASCAR will typically tell us where the drivers will be assigned after the end of the race. And I'm pretty sure once he parked his car at a certain pit stall, he was just out of the racetrack. He was done. I mean, it was a really hot race to begin with. When I say hot race, it was not hot and humid like you'll talk about during the summertime races here in ATYL. But I mean, I think the one thing that's lacking for Larson and maybe all of Hendrick Motorsports, maybe outside of Bowman right now, is the lack of speed.
Yeah.
I mean, after Fontana in Las Vegas, I mean, Phoenix, he was a top 5 car, but that's just kind of odd because he was so strong in the season finale at Phoenix. And then last weekend, the weekend before that at Atlanta, sure, he had a little bit of speed. I mean, it was kind of a restrictor plate type of racetrack for Atlanta, but then gets a bad bump draft by Denny Hamlin. And he wanted to clear the air, by the way, with folks that, no, Denny didn't wreck him on purpose. It was just an accident, a bad bump draft that was meant to be good. But as far as COTA was concerned, not only just a lack of speed, he mentioned about a steering issue that, maybe they just couldn't resolve. And then the other thing too, with 13 to go, they were running 10th place. And then crew chief Cliff Daniels calls him into the pit road. I'm just like, don't you want to get track position? Trust your guy out there. I mean, I'm not a crew chief and I don't want to doubt Cliff Daniels. He's a championship winning crew chief, but sometimes maybe it was a little bit of overthinking and trying to minimize the loss for the number 5 team on Sunday.
Yeah, I think that was one of the calls I definitely questioned there. And then obviously it got him back in a bad position on the race start. And everything just didn't go well for Larson. They also mentioned on the broadcast, at least, an overheating issue for some of the Hendrick cars, which was also a concern as well. So just overall, it wasn't the weekend that we expected from all of Hendrick Motorsports. Obviously, Alex Bowman, though, killed it. He did great. But to give you the finishing order, I mean, Larson finished in 29th, and then we talked about Logano finishing 31st, Kurt Busch in 32nd. The main talk of the hour, though, we got to talk about this AJ Allmendinger thing, of course. I mean, I think we all had him as a race-winning favorite, and he made a really good move in the last lap, trying to get around Ross Chastain because Ross Chastain messed up going into one of the corners. AJ Allmendinger was like, all right, I'll take advantage of it. I'll do it. Moved Chastain out of the way, and then Chastain was like, yeah, I didn't like that. Moved him out of the way, spun him around. Chastain goes for the win. Rob, this is going to be a topic that is discussed by everybody in NASCAR. But from you and me, did we think that was fair game or a foul game?
It's a fair game as much as these are two good drivers. They're best friends before, and obviously respect each other, maybe before the incident, of course. But I think, as AJ said after the race, although I'm sure he was a little bit steamed, he goes, you just have to look at yourself in the mirror. And if you're okay with that move, you're okay with that moving. And I was in that press conference after Ross won. And of course, he's okay with that move. I mean, it's your first Cup win. I mean, unfortunately, when drivers have said, I would wreck my grandmother to win a race, that's proof right there that, these guys are going to put friendships, all these dynamics put to the side because it's for the last lap of a race winning moment. It doesn't matter if it's COTA, Richmond next weekend, or if it's, National Super Speedway in June. These are points paying races. This is about sponsorships. It's about getting to the playoffs, getting Trackhouse Racing to be a winning team, which Justin marks. And Pitbull, of course, congratulations to both. I mean, it's just such great new energy. I hate it for Allmendinger, but his day's gonna come. He's such a great driver, and he's still got more starts anyways. Whereas Ross Chastain, of course, is battling for the championship and for a win. So I mean, I think today maybe AJ's probably looking at it like, yeah, it sucks, man. But you know what? I would have done the same thing.
No, I think AJ's thinking the same thing, and not to mention, Ross is racing for a championship, like you said, and points. AJ's just there for trophy hunting. Colleagues is famous for trophy hunting, and I think it was fair. I mean, you bump one guy, you bump him again. Like, AJ did what I think Chastain tried to do. Chastain was just a little bit more aggressive. But there's our take. I wanted to know your take in the comments below. I don't know if you guys think it was fair, it was foul. If you guys were rooting for Allmendinger, I am very sorry. Just right off the bat. But that's how it all kind of shook out in regards to how, everyone finished the race. Now we got to talk about something else. I know, Rob, you wanted to talk about the new market of what we're bringing to NASCAR and, the new tracks we're going to. And we've seen some really new areas this year. Obviously, the Coliseum, I would say it was a success. We're going to see some more new tracks this year. But what about COTA? What about bringing the NASCAR market to COTA makes NASCAR successful?
I think what makes NASCAR so big and successful for Austin is the fact that, this is such a booming city full of great entrepreneurs, technology. You have a younger generation coming here because of the fact that there's this great exodus from the Northeast or California, all trying to find this nice little new place that feels really welcoming to live in. And then, oh, by the way, there's a nice F1 FIA grade level 1 track called Circuit of the Americas that's been such a premier track for sports car racing. It's had an INDYCAR race. And of course, by the way, the US Grand Prix, which is, to me, one of the greatest races on all of the motorsports calendar. And what makes Austin such a great market is the fact that, this is such a great melting pot of everything that can happen that you'd like. You want to get good food, go downtown or around the surrounding city areas. You want music? Why, we're the life capital of music around. I mean, it's just so cool. There's just something for everyone to do around here that I don't think 3 days of NASCAR race weekend action is enough. I almost wish it was just a full week, like Daytona Speed Weeks. But I think really you have such a great audience here, obviously diversity around here. It's just easy to get to no matter what part of the country you're in. And I just like that, being a Bostonian living in Austin now for the last almost 4 years, it's just really a really cool place to be. So, I mean, it's a great combination. It's like Nashville almost for us here in Texas.
Okay, first off, I love Nashville. And having Nashville and NASCAR together, I've said it's like peanut butter and jelly. It's perfect. Now, I've never been to Texas before. I've never been farther. Well, I've been to Florida. That's as far south as I've gone, but I've never gone towards the other opposite side of the globe or the United States, I should say. But I've always wanted to go. And for me, COTA, I would just go to Texas just to go to one of those races. For me, it's that big of a selling point. I mean, I've seen an F1 race there from watching on my TV, and I was like, that is so cool. So it's a really big selling point. Last year's race at COTA, though it was horrific in terms of danger, I still enjoyed it a little bit. I thought it was cool to see a new track, and I kind of described it to being kind of like a roller coaster, and that was, for me, was so cool to see. I would, if the means allowed it, if the means allowed me to go to COTA someday to watch a NASCAR race, I definitely would. It is bringing in a new market. It's bringing me in. I say that's successful. I say NASCAR needs to keep COTA, and for me at least, I think COTA had its redemption this weekend. We'll talk about that though when we get to our race ratings. But I want to play around with this idea for you, Rob. Now, this might be a stretch, and this might be a real big stretch with 6 races into the regular points paying season. But in 2017, I believe 2018, somewhere in there, we had this talk about the big 3, right? And I like to keep this idea in mind each season because I just like to kind of play with it throughout the year. This is my way too early prediction, but I'm seeing like the young big 3 in Chastain, Briscoe, and Reddick. I will give my reasoning behind this, but I want to know, Rob, if you had to pick a big 3 right now, who would they be for you?
Oh, this is really tough because I think those young guns you mentioned are really legitimate because they're obviously not flukes anymore. I mean, I thought at Phoenix it was like, oh, it's an outlier. It's Phoenix. It's an unusual speedway. But then obviously we saw how well they did at Atlanta, and COTA is no picnic for any driver to contend at. So, if I have to be thinking more long-term of NASCAR, I mean, I would put Larson up there. I would also, I would put Ross Chastain up there too, based on consistency. And if I have to kind of think outside the Chevy camp, because to quote Bob Jenkins, I'm not rooting for an OEM. I'm just all about who's good and, all that. This is a tough one. I normally would say Joey Logano, but he's been really having a rough start. So if I have to look at a 4 guy, Ryan Blaney. I mean, once he figures things out, gets his situation sorted out, you mentioned about the pit crew issues, boy, he'll be tough to beat.
I agree with you. I would put Ryan Blaney into this for sure. And I hope I'm not going to jinx this, that he makes the championship 4. I really do. He was so close last year and just missed it due to a few incidents in the last round of the playoffs. But that is a really good list. I like how you didn't put Toyota in there just yet. Obviously, we see they're struggling with the cars. We talked about this on my show before. But I like your list of going with kind of like 2 Chevys, 1 Ford. Obviously, we got the same thing here: Chastain, Reddick, Briscoe being the 1 Ford. I want to explain myself here because I feel like this is a little bit crazy and outlandish, but we have 6 different winners, right, in the first 6 races, all under the age of 30. This now makes, I think, 12 winners under the age of 30 in a row, if we count last season. And for my reasoning for Chastain, like you mentioned, Rob, he has consistency on his side. He has 4 top 3s in a row, one of those being a win, as I mentioned earlier. He's also led like 156 laps so far this season. For Briscoe, maybe he hasn't shown like super consistency yet. And obviously, like I said, we're 6 races in, but he's led a ton of laps and he's consistently in the front of the field contending for wins. He might not stay there, but he's there. And I can say the same thing with Reddick. He has 4 top 10s this season and he's consistently towards the front of the field as well. I say for Reddick, at least maybe some judgment calls need to be kind of worked with a little bit more, and that just is maturing with the car. But we see them all doing really well on a consistent basis. But I did want to bring this up. If we remember the point standings, they are not really the top in points. Chastain, of course, now is 4th in points, which is great. But Briscoe, for as well as we've seen him do, he's only 9th, and Reddick is 10th. And I do attribute this to some DNFs and obviously some bad finishes. But I hope I've reasoned this out for you all. I hope I don't sound too crazy. I don't want to sound crazy with this prediction, but I want to know also your championship 4 prediction right now, or even just like your big 3. If you had to pick one this early in the season, what would you do? But I mentioned some really good drivers in this. I think so. I think, Rob, you mentioned some really good drivers too, but looking at COTA specifically, I think it's time to award the biggest award in NASCAR, the Above the Line MVP and LVP awards of the week. Rob, as the guest, I want you to start on the negative side. Who do you think is the LVP this weekend and why?
This is a tough one. Because, there are some big names that finish down the serial order. I would jokingly say Bubba Wallace's tire changer probably should be the LVP, but we're talking about drivers, of course, not pit crews. We don't have to throw them under the bus. Oh, gosh. Honestly, I would actually have to give this to Kyle Busch. And no slam to Kyle Busch. I think he did a great job under the circumstances with Toyota struggles with this next-gen car, but he just never felt comfortable out there at COTA. I mean, he just seemed like he didn't want to be there in a way. So I feel like he was the most checked-out driver before the weekend even got started. And even in the truck race media availability, it just seemed pretty monotone. And in the truck race itself, I mean, yeah, he was up there in the mix, but he was just less than what we expect from him. So I would say, well, I'm sorry, Kyle Busch, you are the LVP for today for me.
I tried so hard to stray away from a Toyota because I feel like it's been Joe Gibbs racing, this Joe Gibbs racing that. I didn't want to this week because I've done it the past few weeks. So mine would have been Kyle Busch. I decided to stray away because I wanted to do something different. And I don't mean this in a bad way, but I went between Elliott and Suarez. For Suarez, my reason being he started off so hot one spin and he wasn't able to get back. And I think for me, that was the biggest loss of the weekend. So maybe not like he was the least valuable player of the weekend because he brought stuff to the table, but he had the biggest loss of the weekend. So for that reason, Daniel Suarez is my LVP. I just wanted to see him finish where his car was capable of. A top 5 car for me at least. But now it's time to let's look at a positive side here. Our MVP awards of the week, we will give out 2 this week, one from Rob and one from me, of course. Rob, who was the most valuable player of the weekend for you?
I'm going to give it to 3rd place finisher Christopher Bell because he just overcame so much. I know he was in a spin earlier in the race, and really, I was like watching the serial order in the media center when I got to be out on the track. He really wasn't in the mix at all. So the fact that he got up there, finished 3rd, I was just like, whoa, where did this come from? And, it was just incredible. I mean, he's not somebody you think is a road course warrior by all stretch of the imagination, but once he was out there in pit road, you would have thought he won the race, even though he was drenched in sweat. You could see the marks from his helmet and his baklava off his head. He just looked so worn out, but he had nothing but a smile on his face. So yeah, I would give it to him and the number 20 pit crew just for getting their man up there and giving Toyota something to talk about besides the constant put downs we're giving them on TPF and ATYL.
That is a really good pick. And I hate I went the easy route with this because Christopher Bell, my goodness, that is very good. And I saw some pictures after the race of him and he looked super smiley and I was like, he deserves to be happy. That was a great fight that he had from his team. I went the easy route. Like I said, I chose Ross Chastain simply because first Cup Series win, he dominated a lot of the race, and that last move trying to win, Allmendinger turned him. And he just kind of like threaded the needle between Bowman and Allmendinger himself. I was out of my seat. I was screaming at the TV. I was like, watermelon man, come on. I was so excited for him. So for that reason, Ross Chastain, you are my MVP of the week. So congratulations to Christopher Bell and Ross Chastain for earning the biggest award in NASCAR for this week. Now I think it's time to get to our race ratings above or below the yellow line. You all know how it works. We got to be above a 50%, which means this was a good race. On the line means it was like, okay. Below the line, we're not even going to talk about it. We don't want to be there. But before we get to our ratings, I want to talk about what you all put on a poll on Twitter. 58% of you said it was great, 32% good, and then 6% said okay, and 4% said meh. So overall, a pretty good perception of the race, a little bit of a toss between great and good. That's kind of where I'm feeling too. But Rob, for your race rating, what would you give it and why?
Maybe because I was at the racetrack and got to see a little bit more, I'm probably going to be a little bit biased. I'll give it an 82%. I mean, there were some parts of the race where it's just like, we really could have a little bit more action. It was not as spicy. It was like, just seeing the sunset already happening in stage 2. But then, goodness gracious, we get to stage 3. We get that double the length of what happened in first stages, the first 2 stages. And I was just like, I couldn't even keep up with it at times with the paint trading that was going on. People trying to be careful on the S's because you don't want to get penalized by NASCAR since they got rid of those turtles. And, it was a judgment call situation, talking about Chase Briscoe not being able to recover from things. But overall, did we get a memorable race? Yes. Did we get a finish we're going to talk about in 10 years? Yes. Is it always awesome to get a first-time winner? You don't even have to ask me that question. Of course it is. So I say 82% just because stages 1, amazing, because I thought Daniel Suarez was making his way to victory lane already. Stage 2, And then stage 3, I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. If we had 3 stages like that, I don't know if I'd still be on the show right now.
Yeah, stage 3 was a show. Stage 1 was a clinic from Daniel Suarez. I agree with you. Stage 2 is a little in between there, but I'm not too far off from your rating. From at home, I would give it a 78%. Like I said, with what I saw with road course racing in general, it can be a bit slow. For me personally, I don't like stages at road course races. It breaks it up way too much. I want to see the full strategy play out for road courses specifically in this case. And I also thought it was really cool to see, our Xfinity road course race drivers who were in this race or that have finally joined the Cup Series kind of outperform the road course racers that we've seen in the Cup Series for the past 3 seasons. So for me, that was very cool to see. And like I said, I feel like this kind of redeemed COTA in my eyes. I want to know if it redeemed COTA in your eyes, though. So let me know your race rating in the comments below. But for Rob, that was an 82. For me, that was a 78 for this weekend at COTA. But now it's time to wrap that up and start to preview the Toyota Owners 400 at Richmond Raceway, starting with your track facts.
The track length for Richmond Raceway is 0.75 miles. The race length is 400 laps or 300 miles long. Stage 1 is 70 laps, Stage 2 is 160 laps, and the final stage is 170 laps. Now that we've looked at our track facts, it's time to look at our driver stats, lining up the odds for this weekend. Now, the last drivers to win at Richmond was Alex Bowman in the spring and then Martin Truex Jr. in the fall. The active driver with the most track wins in the Cup Series currently is Kyle Busch with 6 wins. The active driver with the best average finish at the track, again, no surprise, Kyle Busch with an average finishing position of .688. And right behind him are other JGR teammates, Christopher Bell with 7.33 and Denny Hamlin with 8.77 as their average finishing position. The team with the most track wins, again, Joe Gibbs Racing actually has 17 wins, and right behind them is Hendrick Motorsports with 11. So Joe Gibbs has a little bit of a leg up on that company. And then finally, the wins by manufacturer. Chevrolet has 39 wins, Ford has 31 wins, and Toyota has 15 wins. All this information courtesy of RacingReference.com.
Right, so those were your track facts and driver stats. Now it's time to go to our new segment here on Above the Yellow Line. Since We have practice and qualifying to get through. I don't think it's fair to pick a race winner. We need to see how everyone does in these next gen cars. So we're going to watch, to worry. We pick 2 drivers that we want to worry about this weekend and 2 drivers we want to watch at Richmond Raceway. And because it's not just me this weekend, we're going to split the duty here. Rob, I'm going to give you 1 driver to worry about and 1 driver to watch. I will do the same. So let's start with the negative side because I want to end on a positive. I always try to do this and I mix up the order. But Rob, who are you going to be worried about this weekend at the Toyota Owners 400?
It's funny, I'm going to say this. It's Kyle Larson, because I say it's funny because in my interview with him, he says to me, I'm not too worried about the prospects of 16 different race winners because we always have seasons that start off like this. And then we get to the summer and then you get those multiple race winners. Well, I disagree with him on that because last year I started to see some repeat winners happen around this time of the year. And Larson and the 5 team are having some trouble finding speed. The steering issues that I mentioned earlier. And Richmond's not one of his better tracks, at least since his win at that track in the fall of 2017 with Ganassi, now Trackhouse Racing. So, yeah, he got a top 10 finish last year. And yes, he did start to the rear and made his way to the front, but I'm kind of concerned about them. We don't know what's going to happen with these next gen cars on the short track. So I would give him a big, let's see what happens here situation.
That's my concern too. Richmond has never really been a favorite track of mine personally. I want to see this next gen car totally transform the racing there. I want to see some excitement this weekend. Though I am frankly worried about this driver and Bubba Wallace. I want to see them put together a solid race. I want to see them finish where they deserve. And he struggled at this track last year. He finished in 26th place in the spring, 32nd in the fall. And I know, granted, he was getting together with, his team at that point. He was trying to figure everything out. Lots of kinks to work out there. But now with the Toyota struggling, with him still not really finding his footing, except for, the super speedway races, I'm going to be concerned for him, but I want to see him do better. So that's why I will be worried about Bubba Wallace this weekend. But now it's time to go to our drivers to watch. Who do we think is going to do well? Who do we want to see do well? Who are you going to have your eye on this weekend, Rob?
Without practice and qualifying right now, I'm just taking a shot in the dark and just based off of trends. Yes, Ashley Hobbs talking about trends and stats. I'm going to actually, I know I said he was the LVP, but Kyle Busch, the Toyota Owners 400, Toyota race car. At some point, somebody's going to have to be proud to have a Toyota car. Joe Gibbs Racing, I'm talking about you. You guys, the JGR camp hasn't really had a lot to talk about. Truex Jr. is looking really good. Denny Hamlin, we know how acrimonious his season's been right now with Lady Luck. But Kyle Busch, this is a guy who could turn things around just like that. I wish I could snap my fingers. I can't. But I really, he's Mr. Richmond to me, just without, knowing how the cars are going to be on Saturday and Sunday. But I think the number 18 team has something to prove right now. If they get that first win of the season, just watch out competition.
Once Kyle Busch gets the monkey off his back, I'm sure he's going to win a bunch this season. I can guarantee that. I'm looking to a guy that he had a bit of issue with earlier this season. He sold a t-shirt about it all. I'm looking at Alex Bowman. He won it last year and he's been putting together some solid races. I want consistency from him, but based on what he did last weekend at COTA, I think he's going to at least do something good at Richmond. And he's actually pretty good at short tracks too. Heck, Martinsville won that last season too in the fall and with the hack move, but nevertheless, he still won it. So I will be looking at him to potentially win or do well this weekend at Richmond Raceway. But guys, that closes out this episode of Above the Yellow Line, the show where we talk all about the NASCAR Cup Series. Make sure to watch the race on Sunday, all the action for the Toyota Owners 400. And Rob, thank you so much for joining the show. It's been so fun. I always love to have you on here and get your insight, especially talking about at-track action. So thank you so much for being here. And, outside of the channel, where else can we find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at Rob Tiongson, of course. My Instagram at Rob Tiongson. Yes, I do now have a TikTok. It's Rob V Tiongson, but it's not NASCAR content. It's just random, whatever I'm doing at the moment kind of things. And of course on Facebook, RTTPF, you can find me on there. And also on Spotify and also Apple Podcasts. So find me on there, folks. And also support ATYL. Great platform that you built, Taylor, and so proud of you for what you're doing. You're doing a great job.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for being on the show. Everyone, check out the Podium Finishes content, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you love your podcast, also their website. Great content there, and also a lot of different content too. You just see behind the scenes from the drivers, and it's super fun there. So thank you, Rob, and thank you for all that you do with the Podium Finish as well. And guys, check out all those links in the description below. Make sure to follow us here on Above the Yellow Line on our social media platforms as well, Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch. We do live streams every Friday night, like I said, in the description below. But before you do that, before you even click those links, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this with your friends and family. And guys, thank you so much for supporting us here at Above the Yellow Line and the Podium Finish. And until next time, we'll see ya.